Okay, good morning, class. According to yesterday's attendance, um, Tejashwini, Pooja, and Nidhi, they gave very late. What's the reason you joined late or you forgot to give the attendance? You're there, Tejashwini, Pooja, and Nidhi?
Ma'am, I forgot to give the attendance, ma'am.
Okay,
I
this should not
remember.
happen within the 10 minutes of time. You have
Okay,
to
ma'am.
give the attendance, right?
Okay, ma'am.
After that, attendance will not be considered.
Okay, ma'am. Will not
Okay,
repeat it. Yeah, thank
yeah.
you, ma'am.
And how did you feel about yesterday's class? Did you feel that there are lots of interesting applications of machine learning? When I gave you a comprehensive introduction about the machine learning applications in various domains, you felt like there is vast scope for application of this particular technology in different domains in order to alleviate the situations in case where the work is very difficult, or to understand about something, or to predict something into the future, or to forecast something into the future, right? Machine learning applications are a lot. Okay, so yesterday we started with the introduction to machine learning and understood how to start with designing a well-posed learning problem. We understood about the learning problem as a computer program which is measuring the performance P at performing some task T by learning from experience E, right? So we understood about this learning problem in three different terms, okay, that are put together in order to make a wholesome definition. So it is nothing but the experience, the performance, and the task that is going to be performed, right? Now let us proceed with today's concept. Yeah, now let us start the second lecture under this module. In yesterday's class, we have seen how to understand a well-posed learning problem. And the topics going to be covered today are designing a learning system and how to choose the training experience while designing a learning system. And also choosing the target function, in what way we can design the target function, and choosing the representation for the target function, and choosing a function approximation algorithm, and the final design. You have to focus a lot on this because all these concepts that are going to be discussed in first module, they set a platform for you to understand the later concepts. Okay, so I want you all to listen to the class with utmost concentration. Okay, now let us see how to design a learning system. When you are trying to apply machine learning technique to a problem area, you need to understand what is the problem area you're going to cover, what are the boundaries for that problem you're going to address, and what is the scope up to which you're trying to address that particular issue. Okay, for that you have to design a learning system. Now, to understand the basic design issues and approaches to machine learning, we have to start with how to design a problem first. Okay, so in this case, we are just taking the example of designing a program to learn to play checkers. Okay, so it is like you're training a kid how to play checkers. Okay, so you think that the computer program initially doesn't know anything about playing the checkers. Now you are trying to teach it how to play the checkers by making it understand at every legal board state. I'm saying every legal board state means every possible correct position on the checkers board. Okay, what would be the next move? What would be the next legal move? What would be the best next legal move that you're going to explain that kid? Okay, or in this scenario, explain that program. Okay, now what is the goal? Our problem is to design a program to learn to play checkers. Now, what is the goal? The goal is to make that program enter into the World Checkers Tournament. Okay, so you're trying to organize a match between a human champion who plays checkers and this computer program, and understand how well this particular program is performing. Okay, so what is the performance measure here? How you are trying to measure the performance? The percent of games it wins in this world tournament. That is how you measure the performance, right? How you measure the performance of students? The percentage they gain in the final marks, or the the percentage they get, the percentage of matches they win in sports. Okay, that is how you find the performance. That is how you calculate the performance of any subject, right? So here the performance measure is to find the percent of games it wins in this world tournament. Okay, so I'm repeating, the problem is to design a program to learn to play checkers, and the goal is to enter it into World Checkers Tournament. Why are we actually applying this machine learning technique or machine learning algorithm, or writing a machine learning program for this particular problem? What is our goal? In order to make a computer enter into World Checkers Tournament and play with some other computer or play with other human champion. Okay, that is our goal. And how do we measure the performance? The percent of games it wins in this world tournament. Okay, that is the performance measure. Now let us choose the training experience first. We have 5 different categories under this. As I said here, topics to be covered today are under designing a learning system. We are choosing the training experience, in what way that particular system will be trained, and choosing the target function. How do we define the target function? And choosing a representation for the target function in some mathematical terms, and choosing a function approximation algorithm, which algorithm would be best suitable in order to derive the maximum, and the final design, which incorporates all these aspects discussed so far, right? So among this, we are going to understand these 2 steps in today's class. Now, what is our first step? Choosing the training experience. So the first design choice while designing a learning program, our first design choice is to choose the type of training experience from which our system will learn. What type of training experience we are going to provide the system in order to make it learn the given problem domain, right? So the type of training experience available will have a significant impact. I'm underlining this term. It has a significant impact on success or failure of the learner. Okay, so you're trying to teach a kid how to play chess, right? Now you're providing him with the best training experience. You're arranging a coach to him, a professional coach to him, and you're providing the training experience to him. So he'll be a very good champion. He'll become a very good champion, right? But at the same time, say a person who just learned chess at home, like a hobby. Now he is trying to teach that kid. Then surely that will have an impact on the outcome. That will have an impact on the end result, right? That is what I'm trying to explain in this point. The type of training experience available to a system or a person will have a significant impact on success or failure of the learner. Here, learner is a system, but I'm trying to apply this to a human learner so that you will understand it more better. Okay, so the success or failure of the learner will depend on the training experience we try to provide to it. Okay, understand this very clearly. So the training experience should be of good quality in order to get the best outcome out of that learning system, right? And the next point, one key attribute is whether the training experience provides direct or indirect feedback regarding the choices made by the performance system. what type of training experience you are providing. Is it direct experience or an indirect experience? Whether it is a direct feedback on the moves it has taken, on the steps it has taken, or an indirect feedback. Say you can take the example of Dronacharya teaching Arjuna and Ekalavya. Actually, he didn't teach, but Ekalavya assumed that he is being taught by Dronacharya by making a clay idol and assuming that he is teaching him. Okay, but actually direct feedback is not given by the guru there, right? Same thing. In the same way, you can understand this. You're trying to teach a system with a training experience in two different ways. One is the direct feedback, where the teacher gives him the direct feedback about his moves that have been taken, or the system's moves that have been taken. Or indirect feedback is there are well-defined steps in order to win a particular game. So from those steps, it has to learn by itself. Okay, there is no direct feedback being given at each step that is taken in order to come at the final result, in order to arrive at the final result. Okay, so here we are now in direct training examples. What type of experience is available? What type of feedback is available? Let us see. In examples, individual checker board states, when we are taking the example of checkers playing, individual checker board states and the correct move for each is available. Say there is a board like this. Now there are coins like this. Now in order to play with the opponent, this checkers coin can be moved in this way. That is a legal state. Now it can also be moved in this way. That is a legal state. Or it can be moved in this way. That is a legal state. Okay, so for every individual board state, this is an individual board state. Now, when this coin moves to this part, now this is an individual board state, and the next best move for that particular correct move, not best move, the correct move. Again, there is a difference between correct move and the best move, because best move may result in winning of the game, but correct move may or may not result in winning of the game. That you have to understand. Okay, so a coin when moved from this part to this part, or from this state to this state, okay, that is individual board state, and the correct move to the next state. Okay, correct move for each of these coins. Those are training examples. Okay, so the training examples are individual checker board state, this state, this state, this state, this state, this state, and if the coin is here, this state. All these are individual checker board states, and the correct move for each state. Now, if the coin is here, what is the next correct move? It can move in this direction, diagonally backwards, or diagonally front, or straight ahead if it is moving. Okay, all these are correct moves for each of the board states. Okay, these are all direct training examples. Now, what are indirect training examples? These are move sequences and final outcomes of various games played. Say, a board state is like this. Initially, if the move is in this direction, then the next move in this direction, then the next move in this direction, and it won. Okay, that is one move sequence. That is called as a move sequence, right from the beginning till the end of that particular coin's journey. That is called as the move sequence. And the final outcome, okay, by taking this particular step in the beginning and following these sequence of steps, it has won the match. Okay, that is called as move sequence and the final outcome of various games played with different move sequences. These are indirect training examples. Means there is a book to refer. There are set of move sequences to refer. And if this sequence is taken, this is the outcome. If this sequence is taken, this is the outcome. That is how indirect training examples will train a system. In direct training examples, for every move, feedback will be available. But in indirect training examples, it will read or it will train on the pre-fed sequence of moves, and finally, it will learn to evolve at a particular outcome. Okay, you understood, right? Between the difference between the direct training example and indirect training example, this is very much necessary, because in what way you're training your system, in what way you're training your application, that is very important. So in this particular example, I'm trying to differentiate how direct training example system training and how indirect training example matters, right? And now in indirect mode, understand this very carefully. This is the important term that you have to focus on. In indirect mode, problem of credit assignment is encountered. What is this credit assignment? I try to highlight this term. What is this credit assignment? In indirect mode, there are sequence of moves. Now, when this particular move is taken after a particular legal board state, you understood all these terms, right? What I'm repeating again and again. Legal board state is any valid state of being on the board, and a legal move is to which other step it is moving, and that also should be a valid board state. Okay, now in indirect mode, problem of credit assignment is encountered, means whether this sequence of steps are resulting in winning of the game or not. Now, if this step is taken, in this case, if this step is taken, it is winning the game, yes. But if this step is taken, the final result, leave about what are the intermediate steps taken, but the final result is losing the game. In that case, for this particular move, you're giving a lower credit, means you're blaming that move. You're blaming that because of taking this particular move, the outcome of the game is failure. It failed to win the game. It lost the game. Okay, so by taking a particular move, if the end result is losing the game, then you give the blame to that move, or you give a negative point to that move, or you give a negative weight to that move, right? But when you're taking, when you're finding that a sequence of moves resulted in winning the game, in that this move will be given a credit. This move will be given a positive value, or this move will be given a positive weight. It is given a larger weight, means taking this move results in winning the game. Taking in this move results in losing the game. Okay, so a move which ends with the final outcome as losing the game, that will be given a blame or a negative mark, and a move that results in winning the game, that will be given a positive mark or a credit. Okay, this is called as credit assignment. Now this is a difficult problem. Assigning credits is a difficult problem. Why? Because the game can be lost even when earlier moves are optimal. Initially, the player might have taken optimal moves, but later he made bad decision about the sequence of moves to be taken, and finally the outcome is losing the game. Though the initial steps are optimal and are given positive credit, finally, because of taking some later wrong moves, he's losing the game. So what credit do you assign? What credit do you assign to the initial moves? Again, another scenario I want to say. Initially, the moves are not what are actually prescribed to be the best moves. Now, later he has played very optimally by correcting his strategy, and he has won the game. But initial moves are not actually according to the prescribed best moves. Now, what credit do you assign to those moves? Okay, that is why in indirect mode, assigning the credit to the moves is a difficult task. It has to be done with utmost care. It has to be standardized so that you can increase the performance of that particular system, right? So learning from direct feedback is easier when compared to indirect feedback. When you're trying to learn from a direct feedback, teacher is in front of you, you're trying to learn something. So whenever you take a step, or whenever you're trying to understand a concept in a particular way, immediately your teacher will advise you, this is the correct way. Yes, the approach you are taking to learn a particular concept is correct. We are giving you a feedback. When a feedback is given to you, immediately you can correct your step, or you can proceed with your step with some confidence, right? That is why it is always easy to learn from direct training, whereas indirect training, you have the book with you, You have all the inputs in the book, but it is difficult. Why? Because if you understand this concept in a different way than in what it has to be understood, then you may result in a wrong understanding of the concept, right? Or you may not understand the concept better, correct? That is how I wanted to categorize between this direct training and indirect training. And you have to remember that always the direct training feedback is easier when compared to the indirect training feedback. Now, what is the second attribute? Our first attribute is choosing the type of training. What type of training experience? Now, the second attribute is the degree to which the learner controls the sequence of training examples. What kind of control a learner has on the sequence of training examples. Let us see the first case. The learner might rely on the teacher to select informative board states and to provide the correct move for each. So he is taking the help of the teacher. He is taking the help of the expert in order to select the informative board states. Okay, is this the state that is valid? Okay, now from this state, can I go to this state? Am I taking the correct step? It is taking the feedback of the learner at each time, right? At each move. So this is called as direct feedback. The control is on the learner as well as the teacher. Learner as well as the training experience it is getting. Okay, that is one type of control. Now, alternatively, the learner might itself propose the board states that it finds particularly confusing and ask the teacher for the correct move. Okay, now the learner has knowledge about what move that has to be taken, but he has multiple choices. He has different choices. Now, how to make a choice among the valid moves he's thinking are the best? Now he has to ask the teacher for the correct move. Okay, that is one more example. Here, the control is given to the teacher to decide what is the best move, what is the correct move. Okay, and last, the learner may have complete control over both the board states and the training classifications. This happens when the system is playing against itself. Means the system is trying to gain experience by playing against itself. It is not taking the expertise opinion of any teacher or any champion or any human opponent. Okay, it is trying to play the games against itself repeatedly and beat itself repeatedly and gain from that experience. Okay, in this case, the learner may have complete control over both the board states and the training classifications. Okay, so it is trying to find what would be the valid board states and whether it is taking the correct move or not. It will refine iteratively based on the outcome it encounters at the end of the game, whether winning the game or losing the game. Okay, now the third important attribute of the training experience is it represents the distribution of examples over which the final system performance P must be measured. So this is another important concept, distribution of examples. Now you're training a system with a set of examples and which comes from a particular distribution. Distribution means arrangement of all these attributes in a particular way. Say a normal distribution. You know what is a normal distribution, right? I have been telling about this in various semesters. What is a normal distribution? Say if you have a curve like this is called a normal distribution. And I always take the example of height of the students. Very less number of students will have very less height, and very less number of students will have extreme height. And most of the students' height fall in a particular average range, right? That is called as a normal distribution. Now, the distribution of the data points or the distribution of the examples from which the learner is learning, that should have the same distribution as the examples on which the trainer will be tested, on which the learner will be tested. Okay, what I'm trying to tell is you have or you trained a particular learner with some set of examples. Right? Now, you are trying to test whether it is performing the same way with some test examples. Now, if both are of equal distribution, what will happen? It will certainly perform well with the test examples also. That is quite obvious, right? Now, the third important attribute we are talking about is the training experience. The important attribute of the training experience is how well it represents the distribution of examples. Final system performance must be measured. Now, learning is most reliable when the training examples follow a distribution similar to that of the future examples. But is that the scenario that every learner faces? Now you are trained very well with your textbook examples. I'm giving you the example of a student. You're trained very well with the textbook examples. But in the exam, if you get the same textbook examples, you can perform very well. But if you get some other examples, though the concept, though the methodology that you apply would be the same, but if you get a different type of question, the performance may be a doubt. The accurate performance may be a doubt. This happened with subjects like DMS, right? You try to work out some examples given in your textbook. Now some different type of example is given, completely different type of example is given, the basic concept. Then your performance may actually vary. But if you're given the same textbook example as it is, your performance will be the best. So what is happening here? Try to understand the scenario. What is happening here? Learning is most reliable when the training examples follow a distribution similar to that of future test examples. Correct? But is that the case always? No. Does the checkers learning system always plays against itself? No. If it is playing against itself, it always performs the best. But say if it is playing in a tournament with a human champion, then it may encounter some strategies which it haven't seen so far, which it haven't encountered so far. In that case, the performance may be a doubt. It may deteriorate, right? So, what is the crucial assumption? In the machine learning, the crucial assumption that is made is the distribution of training examples is identical to the distribution of test example, but it has to be violated. It should not be followed. Though this is the typical, though this is the crucial assumption, though this is the important assumption that is made by many machine learning experts, that the distribution of training examples is identical to the distribution of test examples, this has to be violated. A teacher, when teaching the students, they should not assume that they will always get the textbook examples for which they prepared in the exam also. They might get different type of examples. So the teacher has to train the students in such a way that he can generalize his understanding to solve any type of problem, right? That is the notion, that is the idea that has to be incorporated into any trainer so that the learner will finally face any type of problem by giving his best performance, right? That is how to choose a training experience. So what we have, what topics we have covered under this, what type of training experience a system may get, direct feedback or an indirect feedback, and what type of control he has on his training experience that is being acquired, whether partial control, complete control, and what type of distribution it is training upon, whether it is being evaluated on the same type of distribution. Evaluated means tested. whether it is being tested on the same type of distribution as a training example, or it is being trained on a different distribution so that it can generalize its performance better when it encounters actual real-time examples. Okay, that is what I'm trying to make it clear for you. Now, to proceed with our design, let us assume that our system will train by playing games against itself. Okay, you're trying to make the system play games against itself. Students, just remind me when we have 10 minutes time to end the class. Amit, can you do that? Any student, when we have 10 minutes time to end the class, you just remind me. Okay, now to proceed with our design process of designing a learning problem, let us assume that our system will train by playing games against itself, okay? Not with a human opponent or not with a human champion. Now, let us formulate the problem. How do we formulate the problem? By making what is the task, what is the performance measure, and what is the training experience. So what is the task here that it is being trained to perform? Playing the checkers. Simple task, right? Now, what is the performance measure? P. That is the percent of games won in the world tournament. Now, what is the training experience? E. How the training experience is obtained? By playing games against itself. Okay, we have taken a simple scenario of making it play against itself. Okay, so what is the advantage here? When a system is playing against itself, it can create a vast set of experience. It can keep on playing games against itself and create vast set of examples or vast set of more sequences, so that there is no particular time limit on it. Okay, so that is how it can enhance its training by playing against itself. Training experience by playing against itself. In order to complete the design of the learning system, we must choose the exact type of knowledge to be learned, what type of knowledge to be learned, and representation of this target knowledge and the learning mechanism. Okay, now we are going to see how we are proceeding forward with these steps. The exact type of knowledge that has to be learned, a representation of this target knowledge. How do you represent this target knowledge? Say these are the sequence of moves resulting in this particular outcome, but how do you represent it mathematically? How do you represent it in the form of a target function? That we have to see, so that you can generalize the solution to a larger population or to a larger data points. And the learning mechanism, how exactly it is trying to learn. Now, our next part in designing a learning problem is choosing the target function. So our second design choice is to choose the target function. Initially, we are choosing the type of experience, and in the second part, we are choosing the target function. Now, determine exactly what type of knowledge will be learned and how this will be used by the performance program. Okay, so you have to determine what type of knowledge it is trying to learn and how this will be used by the performance program, how it is the performance can be evaluated on that type of knowledge that is acquired. So begin with the checkers playing program that can generate legal moves from any board state. Okay, now you're trying to begin with a checkers playing program that can generate legal moves for any board state. Say this is the state where the coin lies. Now what are the legal moves from this particular position? Okay, these are called as the legal moves. Now the program needs to learn how to choose the best move from among the legal moves. Now, again, if you take the board like this, there is a coin here in a valid board state. Now, what is the best move, whether in this direction or in this direction or in this direction, so that the outcome will be success of the game, winning in the game. Now, there are lots of valid states for every coin, correct? After taking a step here, now it can again move in this 3 different directions. Now from this position, it can move in this 3 different directions. Means there are a vast search space from which you can select the best move. The best move is which will result in winning the game. Okay, so the program needs to learn how to choose the best move from among the legal moves. These are all the legal moves, but this may turn out to be the best move so that it results in winning the game. Okay, so that kind of optimization has to be learned by the learning system. So many optimization problems similar to this, right? Like processes scheduling and controlling the manufacturing, where the manufacturing steps are available, but in what sequence they have to be organized so that the entire process can be optimized, so that it utilizes minimal resources and maximizes the profit for that organization. This kind of optimization problems you come across in your daily life, right? Same kind of optimization problem also occurs with playing the checkers game. So which best move has to be taken in order to make the end outcome to be winning the game. Now, while choosing the target function, while giving this scenario, to choose a legal move is nothing but a simple program or a function that chooses the best move for any given board state. Now let us represent it in the form of a function so that it will be more easier. Now let us function called as choose move, and that is a mapping from the set of board states to set of legal moves. Okay, now to choose a legal move is we are trying to formulate it. Our entire problem, our entire task, we are trying to formulate it in simpler terms. So to choose a legal move is a program or function. So this is a function that chooses the best move M for any given board state, for a set of board state B. Okay, now trying to improve P at task T is nothing but learning some particular target function. This is the key design choice. Okay, so you're trying to improve the performance. How you can improve the performance? By making a particular valid board state select the best move in its next step. That is how you try to improve the performance, right? So that the end result will be winning the game. Now let us take an alternate target function. Now, say the search space is very large. For this coin, you may have some 20 different moves. For this coin, you may have some 30 different moves. For every valid board state, you have a large search space from which you can select the best moves. Now, can you formulate it? Is it that easy? So let us try to put in more simpler terms. Let us take an alternate target function as a valid move from a set of board states B can be mapped to a real number set. Means for this board state, if this is the move taken, then that can be given a number 2. Means a better mark. Now I'm giving it a number 1. Means that is not that optimal move. That is a valid move, but may not be an optimal move to win the game. Okay, now you have other number 3. Now you have other number 3.4. Now among all these moves, which move would turn out to be the best move? Obviously this move. Why? Because it is given a larger value. Okay, now for any valid board state, the next move can be given with assigning some values like this, so that the normal moves can be given lesser values and the optimal moves can be given larger values. Okay, that is how you define an alternative target function. The move V is defined such that for any set of board states B, it is given a weight. The next move is given a weight. Based on the weight, you can select that particular optimal move. So defining the target function also needs to evaluate whether that move is correct or not. Now, any evaluation function that assigns higher scores to better board states will do. right? That is what I explained. If it has a higher score for a board move, that particular board state can that particular move can be selected. So it is useful to define one particular target function V. Now let us generalize it more so that you can bring the larger search space to a more conquerable way, into a more conquerable way. Now it is useful to define one particular target function V among the many that produce optimal play. Okay, many moves can result in an optimal play. But what would be the best one you select at that particular moment of time, at that particular valid board state? This will make it easier if you design a training algorithm, right? Now you say for this particular board state, if you want to take this move, then what would be the weight you encounter, whether it is an optimal move or not? How do you decide that? By designing a general training algorithm. Now let us therefore define the target value V of B as follows. How you define that? If B is a final board state, if B is a final board state, that is the checkers coin from here, it came here and it is winning. This is the final board state, that is 1. Okay, then for that board state, you can make V of B equal to 100. Because that move resulted in winning the game, you can give that maximum weight 100. Now, if B is the final board state that is lost, then that should not be an optimal move. That should not be the move that has been selected. That should not have been the move that is selected. So, that case you can assign some weight minus 100, okay, because that is not the correct move, because it resulted in losing the game, right? And the third one is, if B is a final board state that is drawn, say by taking a move the game is drawn, in that case give it a 0 weight, because it didn't result in winning the game or losing the game. In that case you can give it a weight 0. Now if B is not a final state in the game, now I'm not talking about this part of the state of the coin. Say it is somewhere here in the middle. Now if you want to assign weight to that particular move, how do you do that? Now if B is not a final state in the game, not like this, but somewhere intermediary here, on the way to win or lose a game, in that case, then what weight do you assign? V of B is equal to V of B dash. B dash will be your new weight that you assign each time you make a new move. Okay, so you move from here to here, you assign the new weight. You move here to here, that assign the new weight. From here to here, from here to here, you keep assigning, you keep refining the new weights so that you arrive at a final outcome, again winning or losing the game. Now, are you able to find each time a correct sequence of moves? It is not at all possible. You start playing a game. Do you know the correct sequence of sequence of moves you take in order to win a game? Remember, you're playing with your opponent. It may be yourself, or it may be a human champion, or it may be another system. But you're trying to play against someone, right? So when you're playing optimally in order to win the game, same optimal steps are taken by the other side also to win the game, right? So each time you can't decide on the sequence of moves in order to win or lose the game. That is why you are approximating the sequence of moves. You're not deciding on sequence of the moves. I'm repeating again, you're not deciding on a specific sequence of moves. You're trying to approximate the sequence of moves. Correct? That is why we call it as function approximation problem. You can't predict something very accurately. Predict itself says that there is a chance. For this particular set, the prediction may be this. For another sample set, the prediction may be different. So there might be an error associated. There might be a variation associated in the steps you take to predict something or to forecast something or to win something. There is always a variation in the methodology, right? That is why you can't predict the sequence of moves very clearly each time you play a game. You have to just approximate what would be the next best move in order to win the game. That is why we can call this entire problem as a function approximation problem. We are just trying to approximate something. We are not trying to decide on something. Okay? Trying to create a target function. We are trying to define a target function by approximating a function that would best describe the entire target function. Okay, now today we have covered how to choose the training experience by taking the direct feedback and indirect feedback, and what type of control a learner has on the problem, and also what type of distribution he is trained on, whether it is the same distribution being followed for the training as well as testing. But to make a learner more accurate, always the test example should be different from a different distribution than the training example, so that he can generalize better. He can perform better with the unseen examples. Okay, that is how you understood about how to choose a training experience. And now how to choose a target function. You have to create a function approximation which better explains the possible moves while playing a checkers game. In coming up class, we'll try to understand about how to choose a representation for this target function we are going to define, and choosing a function approximation algorithm also, and the final design which incorporates all these aspects that we have understood so far. Yeah, any doubts, students? Yesterday's class was very interactive, right? It was very lively, lot of energy is filled in the class. So I want that to happen in every class.
Ma'am, can you explain again direct and indirect?
Yeah, who is this?
Tanuj.
Anuj. Yes. In a direct training example, what you're doing is, when the system takes some step, immediately it will get a feedback from the trainer whether it is a correct step or a wrong step. Opponent, in the form of another human playing checkers with that, or it can be playing against itself. So if this is the move, then immediately it will get a feedback in the form of next move that is made by the opponent. Okay, so again he makes a move, again the opponent makes a move. So at each stage it is getting some kind of feedback as and when it takes the move. Okay, so that is called as direct experience. It is gaining by playing with an opponent, or by playing against itself. Now there is no opponent at all. It is given set of rules that it has to follow. So if this is the move, then if the opponent moves in a different direction, then it has to move in this direction, and the opponent moves in this direction, so it has to beat it and finally win the game. That sequence of moves are already available. It is not playing in the real time. There are recorded sequence of steps from which it is trying to learn. That is called as indirect training experience. If the learner is getting direct feedback at the real time, then it is called as direct training experience. But if it is trying to learn from the pre-recorded steps, then it is called as indirect training experience. You understood, Tanuj?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Students, any other doubts? Okay, can you tell me what are important terms you have to focus on when you're making a system learn?
Task T,
Task T,
performance P, and experience E.
yeah, and experience
E.
E. Okay, Tanuj and Apurva, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Apurva, number?
52,
Okay.
ma'am.
Right. Now, I have a small assignment for you. It is like a simple task, some interesting task. In next class, that is on Monday, I want you to just present one slideshow. This event is called as one slideshow. So you try to explore the areas where machine learning has not made its impact so far. You know, machine learning is being applied in finance, in the healthcare, in marketing, in social media. Lots of areas you find where machine learning is being applied. Now I want each of you to explore the areas which have not had the impact of application of this machine learning and where you can apply it. Just one slide is enough. On Monday, each one will be given 1 minute and one slide has to be presented explaining an area where machine learning can be applied positively in order to get some good impact on that particular field. So that it is compulsory activity for all. You understood what I'm trying to explain? One slide show I want from each one of you. Each one of you have to talk for just 1 minute. 1 minute will be given to you. And in that 1 minute, in that one slide, you have to explain which are the areas where machine learning technology has not been applied so far and how, if applied, can bring drastic change in that particular field. So far, we have seen a lot of machine learning techniques or algorithms being applied only to enhance the life of already rich people. Say you need not move from your seat and still you can increase the AC, or the smart homes which will optimize the energy utilization. All these things are being used to improve the lifestyle of rich people. But what about the grassroots levels? Try to explore that particular aspect of this machine learning and find out which areas where the machine learning can still be applied in order to bring drastic change in the downtrodden in the society. Okay, so each one of you I'll call, marks will be given for that, and you will be awarded marks based on your presentation, only one slide that you used, and sticking to the time limit, that is 1 minute. Okay, and this happens on Monday. All have to be present for the class. No excuses can be taken, and this is your first assignment. Right? Okay, we'll meet in the next class. Bye.